I started rewatching some of these episodes just to see if you could see the growth. What would you say if I told you we're going backwards?
I'd say that feels accurate.
So here's the thing, like, I don't know if it's I'm turning or what. Like, my hat never seems straight, and it just may be my head. Like, I just may have an awkward
It's not
head.
your shadow, dummy.
No,
it's
not,
your lighting.
because
Yes, it is.
It's.
I can tell. I can see it from here.
I know you think it's there, but it's not, because in some of the earlier episodes, it looks like I'm like doing this, and I'm not.
So we're clearly not going to talk about Sixth Sense. I watched it.
All right, let's quickly go into Sixth Sense, because I watched it with my son, and this was after watching Venom. He's a big Venom fan, but he's never watched the movie. So we watched the Venom movies, and then, this high action, quick cutting thing, and then I'm like, all right, let's watch Sixth Sense now. And boy, did he seem bored. And I'm like, you understand what's going on? He's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, but do you know the ending?
Did he know the ending?
No.
I thought it held up quite well. I thought Haley Joel Osment did a really good job as a kid.
Oh, no. Everything's good in that movie. Everything's good. And it holds up. And I actually got really emotional with the scene that I forgot with the mom feeding her. Spoiler alert if you haven't watched this 27-year-old movie. With the mom poisoning her kid.
Oh, that was the one that got you? The one that got me was the scene at the end with the car where he decides to talk to his mom, and then he talks about grandma, the grandma, and got me.
Yeah, it's an emotional movie. It's really well done.
It is really well done. I thought it held up. I thought it held up very well.
I agree. I agree.
By today's standards, I was like, okay, like he really forced he was dead the whole time, and here's some replay of the same scenes to prove to you that was the case.
But I think you need that. You have to do that, and I think my son got it. I don't know. I'm like, do you understand that he was dead the whole time? He's like, yeah, I thought he was. I was like, I don't think you thought he was. And this is Caden, who was on last episode. So Caden, you're a liar. Number 3. If you know, you know.
Wait, the dog was in the mix. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's true. So Caden, you're number 4.
Sorry, Caden. All right. Well, if we're ready to get started with Tammy.
All right, wait, you don't even have to do an ebb and flow for here. This is like our mom. So Tammy is one of the people that gave me my start, along with Dale West. She was producer extraordinaire and top of her game. She was like a producer for Today's Show for all these years.
Tammy in Miami.
I mean, some of the highest end stuff you could see out there. But the whole reason we want to have her on the show is because she has this really defining moment, and we're hoping she's going to get into it. I mean, we'll force the conversation to get into it, but at the top of her game as a producer, as a television producer, I'm talking every network under the sun, she decides to quit being a producer to open up an adult camp. And in fact, it was a woman's camp at the beginning. I do believe that she does some corporate stuff that has males and females or whatever, but she had such a fascination with camps, and she just opened an adult camp. And to see where it began, to be there to see where it began, to see where it is now is so impressive.
Ebb and flow. Here we go. That's it.
All right, but get into it. For Tammy, get into it. Like go full on.
I gotta shake it off.
Shake it off. You were in a really bad mood. So
I was. All right, here we go. We go. Ebb and flow. Here we go.
Is that Miss Tammy?
I know. There now. I'm 65. Okay, I could be your grandmother, you guys.
You certainly can't be our grandmother.
Not ours.
I surrendered to the hair dye gods that I've been using since I was 20 years old.
Eric can't even use hair dye, so.
Honey, I knew Eric before he shaved, okay?
I know, seriously.
Yeah, that's true. I had hair when we hung out last.
How are you guys? It's so good to see you.
Eric's in a really bad mood, so we figured today's the best day to have you on because you could put anyone in a good mood.
I'm so happy to see you guys. It's been a really long time. How long ago did we know each other? How did I meet? What was that?
Well, Eric, a lot longer. You and I saw each other not all that long ago, though I say that I have no real sense of time.
I don't know. Babies
I was
were-
in LA the last time we saw each other.
But Eric, it's probably been 20 years.
Yeah, well, has it been 20? Gosh, yeah, that first round. So that was round 1 of Miami for me. And yeah, that was like over 20 years ago. I left in 2004. So it's exactly 20 years.
Do you see why she was the best television producer? See how she turned it? Now she's asking us questions and making us think about things. No, Tammy, this is all about you today.
No. This is a 3-way conversation. I want to know what were your defining moments, boys.
Oh, you gotta watch the episodes for those. We'll send you some links.
That proves how much she likes us because she doesn't even watch the episodes and still agreed to be on this.
It actually works in our favor. Had you watched, you probably would have said no.
Yeah, thank God.
Not true, but yeah, I'm kind of nomadic these days. I'm in a crazy space and a wonderful place in my life, which is kind of nuts. But I am sort of homeless. I'm actually in an empty house right now. Am I echoing? Because the house is empty.
Yeah.
No, I am. So, here's the thing. I actually have headphones, but I don't know how to use them, you guys.
Are they Apple? Don't you just put them in your ears?
But I can't get them to sync up on my computer. I'm sorry. I'm such a loser. Nothing has changed. I'm still on analog. I'm still here. I'm still standing, barely, but I'm still standing,
Well, to that, so we gave a really quick intro to you, talking about how you were an amazing producer, television producer. Don't roll your eyes. Top of the world. You had basically every network under your belt, and then you decided to stop. And that's where we picked up.
Okay. What do you want to know?
I want to know, I personally, and we'll start with your defining moment, but I want to put it into the context of Campowerment because you live the dream that everyone, I think, wishes they could do. Like, you're at the top of your game, but I don't know, and I want you to talk about it, but was it you were unhappy? Was it that you had to get this off your chest to do it?
I was in news for like 30 something years, and just like, look, here we are, it's 2024. Everybody's talking about resilience. We all fall. Every one of us has, like, we try to get to the mountain, we fall, we go back. It's like pushing that proverbial rock up the hill, and it always rolls back on you. And like all of us, I've had a lot of sort of ups and downs, but I never had any intention of doing this. I mean, when I was a kid, I always loved summer camp. I went to camp as a kid, and then I was a camp counselor, and then I worked at Club Med. And I really just sort of got into this whole playtime thing, and I was just, and that's what made me, I think, a good producer, because I was very curious and I was a people person. And so I just loved summer camp as a kid. I was very blessed and privileged to be able to go to a place in the summer and get away and be with kids who were my age, who had come from different backgrounds, but not terribly different. But it really helped me understand who I was as opposed to who my parents thought I should be. And it was like such a free place to just kind of be myself. And I surprised myself a little bit, I think. I was kind of nerdy, but I was an athlete. And but when I was there, I didn't have to, I could just be kind of who I wanted to be. And I found comfort in the discomfort of figuring that out. And I always wondered why they didn't have camp for grown-ups. And so I became a producer, a TV producer, a news producer, because I just was curious and I like people. And I connected dots. That was sort of my thing. But I always knew that one day I would try to do camp for grown-ups, because I didn't understand why they didn't have that. I was in this business and it was really fun, and I've been in and out of war zones and drug deals and crazy stuff. But
and stuff outside of Miami too.
Yeah, exactly.
This is where life and friendships and relationships really come in. I needed a job, a big job. I was freelancing at the time for CBS Evening News with Katie Couric. I had worked with her at the Today Show for a long time, and I was doing a lot of freelance stuff. I had a production company. I worked with you boys, and I,
Boys.
you boys, my boys.
I know. I know. Oh, we're so old now.
I called my best friend Lisa G, who I had worked with forever, who was running Extra at the time. And she's like, come. And she created a job for me in 2 seconds. And so I picked up and moved to California. I had one kid in high school who I thought was going to move with me. And in the end, decided that she wanted to stay here. So, and I had one kid in college here in Florida, and I just went. I had to. And it was the best thing I ever did. And I could not deal with the Hollywood stuff. It was just, I was a very newsy person, and I was working for an entertainment show, and it just wasn't my jam. But I kept, we ended up doing a show called Life Changers with Dr. Drew that it was sort of a development thing that I was under. And so I switched over to that, and I really enjoyed that because it was really helping people, helping people. That's kind of what I like to do. Is I'm just a connector. I know I that's my magic. I don't know how to do anything but that, but I'm really good at that, you guys. You can't really put a price tag on that, but I'm really good at it. So in the end, I just, I went and I was there for a few years, and it just wasn't, and, I found this, that my mom found this camp in Malibu, and we just decided to create an experience for people to feel a true sense of belonging and community and connection. And, with expert-led programming powered by Playtime. And
Okay.
I wrote about it and blew it up, and here we are.
There's 9 million questions in there, and we wanted you to get the whole thing out before we start breaking down. I want to go to the moment where you had a lucrative television career, right? And you decide you're going to stop all that to start something that doesn't exist.
Right. And I'm a single mom. But
Yeah.
I was very blessed. I had a great career, and I had worked on some really awesome stuff with some incredible people. I'd really seen a lot of the world, and I just found myself connecting people all the time. I would meet these experts, I would interview them, and then I would sit with the door closed for half an hour afterwards and just kind of grill them on things. And I would help them, with their media and marketing stuff, and they would end up helping me over the years. And I would tap into them at whatever shows I was working on. I learned from them, and they came on, and I kind of media trained them. And in exchange, I said, I just had this moment. I was at Burning Man, actually.
That checks out.
Yeah, it's
While I was at Burning Man, I really just I thought about how the business was changing so much, and it was just very different from where I had started with it. And reality TV this was 2009, when I first moved out to LA, and reality TV was just starting to get to be a thing. And TV just became so cheap to produce and so different from where I was that it wasn't my jam anymore. I wasn't finding the fulfillment and being able to tell the stories and get the satisfaction that I, got when I was, working in news, when it was, the journalism was objective and you could go tell really cool stories about really interesting people. It kind of fell off that.
so you're there at Burning Man. You come up with I don't want to do this anymore, right? Did that realization come while there, or was that leading up to that?
I was with a lot of people who were doing drugs, and I wasn't doing drugs. So it was very clear to me as I was watching everybody everybody had sold Burning Man as, oh, come and you'll kind of find yourself. I didn't know that psychedelic drugs were involved, and it wasn't my thing. So I went to bed at 11 every night. These people partied all night. I got up at 5 in the morning. But I felt so creative, and I was by myself. I was with a group. You have to be with kind of an ecosystem. But I went by myself, actually with a publicist friend. I knew a little bit, but we all went our separate ways. And I was just going with an open mind of going, what do I want to do? What do I want to be? How can I leverage what I'm good at? And turn that into something that can actually help people, because I'm constantly just connecting people through people that I know, because people help people. You have to have your people. And that was one of the reasons that ultimately I said, I want to go find a place where we can all find our people and be with people who are looking for what we're looking for. How do we go through life finding the happiest path that's going to bring us, what we were brought here to do anyway? So I just was like, I couldn't find it. So I'm like, fuck it. I guess I got to do it. And so I just started writing what I want. And I would ask myself questions, and I wasn't even really talking to anyone or socializing. Burning Man for so many people is like one big party. For me, it was one deep think tank for myself. I really didn't interact with people either. It was so interesting. I really just kind of stayed by myself and just wrote and asked myself a million questions. I wrote 158 pages. And if you were to go, I wrote 100 reasons why I want to do this camp thing. And I literally created
Wow.
and when you go back and you look at it now, it's crazy because so much of what came out of my tush that week, it was just, we almost used it as an outline. It was like, okay, now what? When you make up shit, as you guys know, because that's all we do is make up shit. You just kind of like, you look around and go like, anybody want to like throw something in? And there's like nobody there when you're kind of by yourself. It was me and my mom, who was in her 70s at the time. And my kids were kind of piping in, but all of a sudden I started bringing in these experts that I had collaborated with. And over the years I had connected to, and once you put them on the Today Show and they get a platform, they get a book deal, and they, get to make a lot of money. And I used to say, I'm coming back for you one day. I'm going to do a camp. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I said, I'm coming back for you one day to be able to share what you know and what your gift is with people who wouldn't ordinarily be able to get it. That's going to be your charity. And you know what? When when we came up with the idea, and my mom found this place in 2013, it was like, wow, let's go for it. And it's like, who's coming? That's like, if we build it, they will come.
When you decided that you're going to start this, were you thinking it was a one-off, or were you thinking that this is going to be my next business venture?
Here's the thing, and this is what I didn't learn. When you talk about defining moments, my defining moment didn't come till 2019 when my mom passed away, because that's when I started to understand the mantra that she lived and actually died by, and that was live life 20 minutes at a time. Like, it doesn't matter what's happening after 20 minutes from now. Like at 6:12, I have no idea what is going to happen to me at 6:45 or whenever we're done here. I don't care. I live and die by my calendar, but other than that, I am living in a flow that I've never lived in before, because I'm not worrying about what's next or what just happened. And by doing that, I've been able to just put one foot in front of the other. So in answer to your question, no, there was no business plan. There was never a plan to make this into something. It just kept evolving. And every time it didn't fill up, or we didn't hit our financial goals, we were like, okay, this is our last one. We're really done. And then we would go, and it would be so amazing. And my mother would she was the village elder. She taught people journaling. And really how to sort of express yourself and in writing. And so she would be the one who would say, we got to do one more, just one more. Like, look what just happened. We got to can we just do one more? And we had some crazy, crazy stuff happen. She did some fiddling with the books and paid for people that she wasn't supposed to, and did just added the books a little to make it look like, so we didn't have any intention of doing this like this when we started it. Just when Oprah writes about you, we were in a list of 50 things that make you say, wow. And it blew the doors off. That's when I quit my job. It was crazy.
Was there ever a fear? Were you ever nervous this wasn't going to work out, or, that you just kind of left this career to start this? Was there ever that, like, what the hell did I just do?
Every single day, I thought I was insane, and I second guessed myself. And I used to look back. I used to try not to look back, but I was always looking back as to if I had done this and if I had done that. And I always sold my houses at the wrong time. Like, I just really never was that. I did really well in my work and my business because of my creativity, but a business person I was not.
Did you have the mentality that you've done this, and when I say this, kind of make other people's dreams and ideas come to fruition because you're a producer for today's show. You would put them on and then they would blow up. Did you have that mentality that you could do that for yourself?
No. And I never looked at myself as someone who should be front and center of this movement. And so it's interesting because I was more the connector, I felt like, than the expert. But the more I created these things and sort of watched people evolve and step into their own like power of what it was that they are better at than anyone else in the whole world. And that's what this whole thing is about. It's like every one of us has in us this desire to give back, to do something in the world. Like we all have something that we're good at, that we're better at than anyone else in the whole world, that people come to us for, that we don't get paid for, right? Like we all have that. And so what I tried to do, and what's actually happened with this camp, is to help people bring in experts to help people extract what is that thing. I call it, I borrowed it from one of our experts named Andrea Quinn, who is just she's an amazing life coach in LA, and she calls it your pyoma, and it stands for pull it out of my ass. That we all have, that we do, that we know better than anyone, that we give away. And how do you codify that and turn that into your thing that can be why you came to this world? And by the way, you can actually make a living at it too, if you're smart about it. And so that's kind of what we've become, kind of these reinvention starters for people. And that's been the most exciting, incredible part of all of it. And the producing, it's all the same. Like I'm still producing, we're all producing every day.
I mentioned this to Carrie, so I looked up the Campowerment and some of the videos that you put on Facebook or whatnot, and instantly, when you talked about some of your rules, did you give all the rules, or did you give the first rule?
Yeah,
3 rules. What are the 3 rules?
No saying what you do for a living for the first 24 hours. The second is what happens in the circle stays in the circle. When you go to these circles, you are not allowed to go back into your cabin or to your whatever and share. It's a very, you have to feel comfortable to be able to do that. You don't have to talk or share, but most of the time when you hear somebody talk about something you're experiencing, it just makes you feel better. It just makes you feel like I'm not the only one. And the third one is no wasted. We don't do wasted. We do wine. We do a happy hour one night. We give you 2 drinks. We stamp you. No dishonesty. Like you want to be wasted, go somewhere else. So
interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting. But also, it's not just like you're talking about a lot of sharing, but it's an actual camp as well, meaning that you guys have like the high rope thing that I've seen people do.
So we create. So what makes this so unusual and so transformative for people is that we've created like a formula, and that's producing again, where we get people. They have a great time. And they're like totally vulnerable and open and shaving cream on their heads and throwing Cheetos at each other and like real silly, crazy games. And then we go deep. And then just as they start to get really vulnerable, we play again. And then we go deep and we break people into, there are about 120 to 160 people who come every time. And that's the secret. If it's too small, when you go on these smaller retreats, they're great, but you're with the same people and everybody's kind of the beauty of this is we create like micro communities of people, and the people who are dealing with, troubled, family situations find each other because they're in the groups, and they find, and the ones who have kids who have some extra needs, they find each other and they share information, and they don't all hang out together like that, but you kind of find the people who are on the same parallel path as you, and that's where you are drawn to, and that's where you find your people and you start to grow and learn. I mean, and everybody's got something, and in these experiences, which are anonymous, everything we do is interactive. So it's not lectures. So we have about a dozen experts at every camp. And with corporate, it's different. We bring in whatever it is that they're looking for. But so you find what it is you're looking for. It's a choose your own adventure thing. There are 3 or 4 things to do every hour and a half. And you decide if you need information on caring for your aging parents and what to do about that and how to know what the next step is and how to take their keys, then you go with that shrink who's talking about that. Or if you want to go with somebody who is going to teach you how to leave corporate and get into an entrepreneurial space, and how to market and learn, how to stand, use your own network to kind of grow your, whatever your idea is, your big idea, whatever, you go that way. And if you want to go here, if you want, we have, there's just so many subjects, everything from, oh, wow, we have doctors and sleep experts and psychologists and shrinks and coaches and spiritual people and astrologers and, it's just meditation and ropes courses, and the fun stuff is in, that's the video that you saw, Eric. That's the color wars and the pie eating contests. And that's the bonding that we don't get to do as grownups anymore.
Well, you never get permission to do that. Like, when's the last time you had permission to do a pie eating contest?
Right. And it's so great because you can do as much or as little as you want. You can sit and cheer people on, but you really just don't have to do any, you can sit on a rock and do nothing. But because there's no TV, because there's no room service, because the options are, you can lay in a hammock if you want, or read, or journal, or do whatever you want to do, or listen to music, or whatever. But it's not like you're going to go get distracted into something that's going to take your mind away. There's still going to be deer walking in front of you as you're kind of laying in that hammock.
So you've talked about some of that, like connecting people together, right? That's something you're really good at, and you notice. Is there something from your childhood that led to that you know of, or something, or was that evident when you were younger, or do you really truly just discovered it later?
No, I think that I've always been a free spirit, but I bucked the system because I grew up in a traditional house where I did all the right things, but I still had this little wild streak that always kind of took me off course a little and then pulled me back. But so interestingly, I don't have an entrepreneurial mind. I'm just more of a creative. I probably should have partnered with somebody. I did have someone from Paramount Pictures years ago who really could have taken this and made it big, but that really wasn't what it was about for me. It's about watching humans connect, especially at a time when disconnection and loneliness is so prevalent. Since the pandemic, all of that, like people have just shuttered themselves in, and we need each other. We need to find our people. And sometimes our people are not the people that were our people when we were 20 or 30 or 40. It's like, you find them, your intuition, whether you're a spiritually connected or a religious person or whatever, it doesn't matter. When you walk into a room and you start talking to someone, like, oh my gosh, like there's something here. I like you, or, oh my goodness, go away. That's our gut. We know that, but we don't trust that until we get older, because we really, I know for me personally, I used to overcompensate, they're not that bad. I can get past that. But when we know better, we do better. And as we get better, the older we get, the more discerning we can become, and the more we can sort of go find the people that want to talk about the things that we want to talk about, whatever that is.
Tammy, I want to tell you one of my defining moments. Other than meeting you, that obviously you gave me my start, and
well, so Phil, maybe a little bit about that in terms of how that connection came to be at Dale's and whatnot.
Yeah, you were producing, and there was no way I should have been working on anything that you were working on. But I don't even remember the first thing we worked on, but I remember the longest thing we worked on was the Children's Museum stuff. Right. But yeah, I remember thinking to myself, is like, oh my God, if she finds out that I don't know what I'm doing, I'm dead.
And I thought, okay, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know how we got these hot shit kids who are so in tune audio wise and with everything, and they work so hard. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get found out now. I got myself these guys who are going to make me look good. Okay, honestly, that's it. So you were worried about me, and I was like, oh my God, these guys are going to go. She's an old fuddy-duddy, and it was the beginning of nonlinear. So so it was right when you could actually leave. I would get in, give you editing instructions, go do my carpools, go do my aerobics, go do my shit, my whatever work, do interviews and then come back. And it was like the greatest thing after all those years of having to sit in an edit room and cut piece by piece. It was like, for you brought me freedom like I never knew it, and creativity. I would come back and go, wow, how did you do that?
Well, I remember always being nervous to show something because you would leave and then we would have to show what we worked on that day. And I was always nervous. It's like, is it enough? Was it good enough? All those kind of things. But to that, I do remember you always saying like, you're always worried about getting found out. And that imposter syndrome. And I have that even now with when I go out and direct something now, I'm like, oh my God, if they realize I don't know what I'm doing.
I don't believe you. I don't believe you, Ricky.
I do. Yeah,
Really?
I do. But the defining moment for me was you gave me the opportunity to do graphics for the Today Show. You were working on a piece, and this doesn't have a happy ending, by the way.
Well, was this with Paul Simon? This wasn't with Paul Simon. This was something.
No, that was an amazing. That was
so
unbelievable. Cool. I still have that. That's actually hanging up in my kitchen. The signed Graceland CD that you got me. No, it was a Today Show segment. I don't remember what it was for, but you're like, hey, I could probably get you to do the graphics as an intro if you want. So I think it was due on Monday morning. I spent 2 days working on this thing.
Of course you did.
Yeah, of course. We sent it to him in the morning and the feedback was, this is really amateur. And it broke me. But it was one of those things where it made me realize, like, I didn't do any research on what kind of graphics they were doing. I just did what I thought was right. And it was such a valuable lesson of, hey, know your audience, figure out what they're doing, and don't reinvent the wheel for these networks. And I've taken that to this day where it's like, go and see what they're doing. Don't just like, hey, we did a ghost show. Don't judge me. We did this ghost show and I don't watch ghost shows. So I could have taken like, hey, this is the show I would want to see, which is not the show that would have been on the air. So I took that lesson of like, don't be amateur. That was a pretty big defining moment in my life.
I guess it didn't settle on me because I didn't even look at your podcast before I came on. So.
Well, it wouldn't work. They're more than 20 minutes long. So
yeah, exactly. I was going to say, when you were talking about that 20 minutes thing, I was like, the problem is we tried booking you 2 weeks ago and it was longer than 20 minutes. So because you were like, because you agreed, you're like, yeah. And then 20 minutes later, it's like, nope, not doing that.
Well, because my plans changed. I was supposed to be in LA. Like, this is part of my problem is that everything is fluid with me, and like I'm having dental surgery tomorrow only because I'm only going to be back in 2 weeks. I planned it so that I can get the stitches out. Like, this is kind of how my life works, and so it's been a little bit crazy. It's been, but
it's working for you. But you're happy that way, right?
You look happy.
I do. I am happy.
Tammy, you mentioned earlier the journaling at Burning Man and all the 158 pages you wrote or whatnot. Do you still journal? Do you journal regularly?
I do. Not enough. And here's the thing on journaling. People stop because they feel like, oh, I was doing it every day and then I don't do it, and so I'm just going to stop. I don't believe that. I think that you can pick up, if you haven't done it in 5 years, pick it up now and just let your brain bleed onto the page. So I have journals. Yes, so I do journal all the time, but sometimes I go 3-6 months without doing it. Sometimes I do it. I do it a lot on airplanes. When Chelsea was born, I had somebody told me to write to her as if she was 21. And so I started to do that, and ended up having, by the time she turned 21, I had about 50 books, but they were all out of order. They were all a mess. I used to take sticky notes, Post-its, and put it on, when they would do something cute, and I would put them on the journals, and they were just composition books. They weren't, as I said, everything was out of order. They were all over the place, but I would take the sticky notes, and then I would get on the plane, or I would go away for work, and I would write when I was there, and I would take the notes and kind of weave them into a story. And the only time I ever didn't write, and I typed, was the day I got divorced, because I wanted them to read this when they were older and know and understand, from an adult standpoint. But other than that was 12 pages. Other than that, everything is handwritten. And we went on a journal reading trip when Chelsea was 21 and Court was 17, and we read the journals, and it was was pretty interesting. And they journal a lot now. And journaling is a huge part of camp. And we do, as I said, we do these online expert-led programs, and I do journaling a couple times a month. And I just find it so cathartic. Do you guys do that? Do you ever write down stuff?
I did once.
I know what he's reaching for.
I have it right here. I don't know if you can see that. It's an actual journal. When I went to India.
Really?
It's not 158 pages.
But it's got some zingers.
It's got some zingers, and I would say about 60% of it has misspellings.
Who cares? It doesn't matter. That's the whole thing. You're not supposed to correct your mistakes or whatever, and you're supposed to just keep the pen writing. But yes, so I just do stream of consciousness, and I do a lot of self-judging on there. I read it as if nobody's ever going to read it, and when I'm dead, I don't care if they read it.
Something that from 20 years ago that you said has always stuck with me was the mentality or the concept behind the defending your life. And is that going to make my real? Like, is that something you still think about and still live by, or
Every day.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
It's Defending Your Life with Albert Brooks and Meryl Streep, and it's really about where do you go? Like, it's being put in front of a tribunal of judges who are going to pick the 5 moments of your life that were the most defining moments in your life, and even if you don't think that that's what they are. Like, I'm sure that when I'm laying on my deathbed, I am not going to be thinking about giving birth to my daughter. That was not fun to my kids. Like, it was like, I'm going to remember the beautiful parts about that, but like the things that you think you're going to remember, you really don't. And so I love this movie so much. And when you guys were growing up and you would have a meltdown over something, I used to buy those movies in Costco and give them out to anyone I worked with and said, watch that. And if at the end of your life, if it's not going to make your reel of what you're going to remember, like, it's not that important.
The thing that stuck with me about it was when you first introduced us to it is this thing that you think is big or important, or you are considering putting the energy into to turn into a big and important thing, is it going to be the thing that you want to remember, right? Is it worth your energy? Is it worth your investment into, or nope, it's not. I know I don't want it to be, so I'm going to let it go, really, kind of type thing.
Yeah, at the end of the day, like, you still need to look at yourself from 30,000 feet and go, am I going to be proud on my deathbed of the life that I lived? And we're all going to have regrets. We all do. We all made mistakes one way or the other. I'm laughing at myself trying to sell a house when mortgage rates are 7%. My first house was 18%. Like, 7% would have been a steal. I can't get anybody to look at this friggin' house now because they want 3% mortgage, which is hilarious. But it's like, you just watch our mentality is so different depending upon where we are and where the world is. And that, for me, is the coolest part about living and life. And you get to do whatever the hell you want. And even when you have responsibilities, you could still do that. How many people do you know who had kids and went, I'm going to go to medical school or law school, or this is something that I need to do. And it's hard when you're in it, but you can change your life at any time. You just got to chase it, and you got to reach out to your network and find people who can help you. You've helped people along the way, always. I know you too. I know you have. We all have. If you're good, kind people, you help people. And so people will help you. You just have to ask. Nobody's coming there with the answers if you don't ask them for it.
That's incredible.
Tammy, you're the most inspiring person I think I've ever met.
Oh, shut up, Ricky.
See, but you can't take a compliment.
Yeah, there it is.
Thank you.
I can't tell you the amount of things that have running through my head, both for myself, but for Carrie. Carrie's very
Gigi
much
as well.
You were going through, you listed off a series of things earlier in the podcast that I went, that is Carrie
I said, that's Gigi.
Carrie. My wife Carrie to a T right now. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to find out about how we can get her to this camp.
Are you ready for this? So another one of my stories is really crazy, but we had a woman who came, who read about an Oprah years ago. And you almost can't believe this, but so in my book, which is where I'm going to come hit you guys up, I'm linking to video because I videoed everything. because I recorded everything. Like when this one talks about jumping off the 60-foot pole, like I have her screaming, freaking, crying, whatever. When we're talking about my mother teaching the dash, it's like click here and listen to Grandy and take her journaling prompt. But with each one of these things, there are stories. So this woman comes to camp. She's a firefighter. She is in Dayton, Ohio. A 911 call comes in, and her husband, about a year before, had told her he wanted to be polyamorous. She didn't know what that meant, really, and she was like, she didn't want to get divorced, so she kind of agreed to it. P.S. She's there. She gets a call that cops have surrounded her house, and they have a warrant for the arrest of her husband for the murder of this woman and her husband killed and got convicted. This woman stood by her man while he got convicted and was going to jail every week, filling up his commissary money, and his internet money, giving the credit cards and supporting him through all this because she felt useless and whatever. And her family all turned against her, whatever. Anyway, she came to camp and she stood up and talked about this and how she knows she needs to whatever. Some fucking camper stepped up and said, I'm going to be your lawyer. I'm going to help you. And blah, 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 blah. P.S. She just got divorced in March. She has just changed jobs. She has just but when I tell her story, click here, you see the video of the lead story in Dayton, Ohio that night of her husband convicted of murder, blah, blah, blah. So the point is, there are people who come to this they're at rock bottom, and they really don't know where to go, and they're embraced and held by this community at large, and it's insane. That's all I can say.
Wow.
It's really insane. Crazy. And we just sort of make learning fun, and it's, we do crazy interactive stuff like, okay, we're going to do a museum of you. Go collect 5 items that is going to be, and then come describe. So we do, I just come up with crazy shit. And we do it, and it's and they do it. They look at me like, "Oh, that's really cool." I'm like, "Oh, is this a stupid one? Is this going to work this time?" It always works because when you come in vulnerable and you want to play, and everybody else is being stupid and looking silly, it's a whole lot easier to do it when you're not the only one.
Tammy, thank you so much for doing this. You're honestly one of the best people I know, and forget you being awesome. You gave me my start. You believed in me when no one else would. And I love that. And even more than that, I've always considered you my second mom. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for everything you've done for me.
I love you, Ricky Tiki Tembo, Nosa, Rambo, Cherry Berry, Moochie Moochie, Pip Perry Pembo. Do you remember that? I used to call you that every day.
I know. And
Eric, I adore you. It was really so nice to chat. I hope that you got something from this. And
it's wonderful. Of course, inspiration, which is the best, honestly. We should send you the link to last week's episode because you get talked about some in that episode. And it's important because it was part of some of Rick's defining moments that I think you'll really appreciate.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, Ricky, you're going to make me cry. I feel like you guys are like my proudest accomplishment.
Love you, Tammy. Thank you.
Thanks, Tammy.
Wow. Did not disappoint.
No.
All right. Are we done?